It says it's recording. Okay, Rabbi, so we're back to Reb Chaim. So who remembers? Reb Chaim has what I call Tzvei Dinim, and he's talking about the status of the Uber, correct? Does the Uber have a status of a nefesh? So Reb Chaim comes up with a very complicated answer to that question. When I say complicated, it means yes and no. Usually when you ask a question, the answer is either yes or no. But here it's yes and no, both at the same time. So if you're asking a question whether or not we could be doche the nefesh of the ubar in order to save another nefesh, in violation of the mission in Olos that says ain't doche nefesh mei nefesh, says Reb Chaim, the ubar is a nefesh. And we're going to have to find some explanation, some mechanism that would justify that we kill the uber to save the mother. And what's that? What is that methodology, or what is that principle? Right. However, with regard to being doche isurim, the Rambam doesn't take a definite stand on the issue in Masechet Yoma. Let's go over the Gemara in Yoma. The question is, a woman who's pregnant smells the food and she wants to eat on Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
So as Machlokes Rishonim, whether or not we violate Yom Kippur for the sake of the ubar, if let's say the mother's life is not in danger, she'll survive. And it's only the ubar whose life is in danger, so we can allow her to violate Yom Kippur for the sake of the ubar, and that fits under the principle of v'chai b'hem v'lo sheyomas b'hem, otherwise known as pikuach nefesh, and therefore the uber is called a nefesh. So to the same extent that we will protect the life of the uber, because ain't doch nefesh nei nefesh, because the uber is a nefesh, so by that same token, we'll violate Yom Kippur for the sake of the uber. However, that's not so simple. There are Rishonim who say that we can only violate Yom Kippur for the sake of the mother, not for the sake of the Uber. And unless the mother's life is in danger, we will not allow her to eat on Yom Kippur, even if the Uber's life is in danger. Which means that as far as V'chai B'hem V'lo Sheyomas B'hem, the Uber does not have the status of a nefesh. And yet we just finished saying that we cannot take the life of the Uber even for the sake of saving another life, because ain't doche nefesh nei nefesh, because the Uber does have the status of a nefesh. So Reb Chaim comes up with a very complicated structure of tzvei dinim. He's saying on the one hand, the Uber is a nefesh, so it can't be nidche, you can't be doche his life for the sake of another life. But on the other hand, he's saying that you might not be able to violate Yom Kippur for the sake of the Uber, because the Uber is not included in v'chai b'hem v'lo sheyomas. Pikuach nefesh doesn't apply to the Uber. Now, the Rambam is vague on this issue. There's no way of knowing what the Rambam holds about violating Yom Kippur. The Rambam just says that Uber Shiricha, will allow her to eat, but he doesn't say why we're allowing her to eat. He doesn't point out that whole life is not in danger. We're going to do it to save the Uber. So we don't know. So Chaim, therefore, in order to explain the Rambam, because the entire Sefer here is to explain the Rambam, he has to be willing to defend his understanding of the Rambam, even according to that opinion, that you do not violate Yom Kippur simply for the sake of the Uber. Okay, that's what we got up to yesterday. However, here Reb Chaim adds something else. V'od. Now I want to make sure you're all on the same page, right? Let's see. Here it is, V'od. See if you can find it. You want a copy of this? I have one more copy, if you want. But just, take the paper with my finger on.
Yeah, I found it.
Just kidding. You see the word V'od?
Yeah.
Here it is. It's in this paragraph, V'yisod, and sort of like smack in the middle of the paragraph. So here I'm giving this to you. V'od, Reb Chaim now makes an astute observation regarding the Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara in Yuma is not talking about a pregnant woman. Stop, just a pregnant woman. It's talking about a woman who's Yosheves al Hamashber. Are you familiar with that technical term?
Yes.
What does it mean?
That like she's like on the bed and about to give birth.
About to give birth. He says, with regard to Yosheves al Hamashber, Mashber is the kind of,
Like
when
a
they
chair.
give birth, when a woman gives birth, they have a special kind of chair, that she sits on. Hare mavur bi erchin dav zayin, tavi gufa achrina v'nigmar chiyusi v'ante nafshe, and that's called deles hu dachida biate. What does that mean? The fact that the baby hasn't yet been born is because there's a delis. There's like a door that prevents the birth of the baby. But the baby itself, according to the Gemara, is nigmar chiyusei bi'api nafshe. How do you translate that into English? Again, nigmar chiyuso bi'api nafshe.
That it no longer has the ability to live?
No, just the opposite.
Don't.
Yeah, because she's about to give birth, so we see the vlad, the embryo, as if it's already an entity unto itself. Bi'api nafshe means unto itself. And the reason why we see it as an entity unto itself is because nigmar chiyuso, meaning it has everything. It has the ability to breathe. It has all its organs. It's a complete entity. It's a complete human being. Just that there's a delis. There's something that's holding it back. It has to break through, if you know what I mean. And the Rosh in Yom Kippurim says that in such a case, mechalin olavis hashavos. Hands down, meaning there's no issue once she's Yosheves al Hamashber. Im kain hare biyoshva al Hamashber l'kuliyamu hu b'chlal v'chai b'hem v'bikuch nefesh tov kol haTorah kula. So even if you were to argue to me, well, I'm not convinced, I'm not, you have to persuade me that the Uber is a nefesh, because if we're not Machal Shabbos for the Uber, and not Machal Yom Kippur for the Uber, then it's not a nefesh. Well, we're talking about a case of Yosheves al Hamashber. In the case of Yosheves al Hamashber, Chaim says everybody has to agree that the Uber is a nefesh. So then we have to go back and ask ourselves the question. Pasha, Hadisnan, we had a Mishnah that we started with. That was the first source that we saw. That how could it be? How can we kill the Uber if the Uber is a nefesh? Ain't docha nefesh nefesh. Al Kain, who is pressed by this question, who is like strangled by this question, who is the Rambam. And Mefarish Rambam, who did Mesuyim, but did Rodev. How does Reb Chaim define the din of Rodev? B'din hatzala hamura b'nirdav. So what did the Torah present us in the new halach of Rodev? That for the sake of saving the nirdav, we could be docha nefesh from the nefesh. Right? So normally, Ruvain's running after Shimon to kill her. Ruvain's got a nefesh, and Shimon has a nefesh. We have to be passive, and we have to sit on the sidelines. We can't, decide that we're going to take Ruvain's life to save Shimon. The Torah is machadesh that principle, you can't take one life over the other because ain't docha nefesh nefesh, is suspended with regard to a Rodev. Says Reb Chaim, that's going to apply to the Uber. So even though, again, if you're operating with pikuach nefesh, you can't kill the Uber because ein docha nefesh nefesh. So, for example, if Ruvain's about to die because of Shimon, can you kill Shimon in order to save Ruvain? You can't kill one person to save another. Ein docha nefesh nefesh. The Torah's machadish in the case of Rodev that's exactly what you can do. You can be docha nefesh for a nefesh. Okay, where are we up to now? Is everything clear? Everything smooth? We're in deep trouble. Because what are you telling me now? That the Uber is a Rodev, so then even when it pops out its head, it should be a Rodev. And what are you telling me? Well, when it pops out a head, it's a nefesh. We said that it's a nefesh even as in the state of an Uber. That's the whole reason why we needed to invoke the halacha of Rodef, because the Uber is a nefesh. And certainly in the case of Yosheves al Mashber, where we could violate the Shabbos going to everyone for the sake of saving the Uber. So the Uber is no nidche, and the only reason why we doche the Uber is what? Is because the Uber has the status of a Rodef. Well, if you're telling me that the Uber has the status of a Rodef, then even when it pops its head out, it still remains a Rodef. Now, our question is not on the Rambam, it's on the Mishnah. What does the Gemara say? And in explaining the Mishnah, that once the baby pops its head out, we cannot kill the baby. Why? Because mina shamayim karad fileh, which means what? Basically, what does that mean conceptually? Mina shamayim karad fileh.
The baby doing a session, right?
And therefore, the baby is not what? Not a rodent. So I don't understand. You're going to kill the baby before it pops its head out because it's a rodent. Once it pops its head out, it's no longer a rodent. Mishamayim karad fileh. Why don't you apply the principle of Mishamayim karad fileh even before it pops its head out? We're in a real bind over here, Mimanasha. If you're going to tell me that the Uber is a rodef, and that's why we kill the Uber, and then even after it pops its head out, it should be a rodef, we should kill the baby. If you're going to tell me that the Uber is Mishamayim karad fileh, is not a rodef, so why do you kill the Uber? So you could have said because the Uber is not an nefesh, but we're saying that the Uber is an nefesh. And that's why the Mishnah needs to invoke the principle of Rodef. And that's why we will violate the Shabbos to save the Uber. We can't touch the baby. Let's underline those words. But Chaim's going to have to cross this out. I don't know. The law of Rodef Klal. Then Cain, if he's not a Rodef, Amai below Yotza Rosho, if the baby has not yet popped its head as Horgano, so we kill it. Mishum did not tell Nirdav. Came the Ein Kan did Rodef Klal Vitzorech Iyun. So imagine we got up to the last few lines in this very long Reb Chaim, and we're still back at square one. So Reb Chaim has about 5 minutes to solve this problem. At the very end of this long presentation. Okay. So also, what I'd like to try to do is to read this last piece. Do you have it in your printing? Is it a separate paragraph, or it's within the same paragraph? Vasher Yireh. That's part of the same paragraph.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, but I can't change Reb Chaim, I would have, those, when you put that thing with the 2 lines in, I would press the return button. I would start a new paragraph. Vashayira muchach mizeh. Okay, Reb Chaim holds that we have no choice. We got to say the following, and when we say the following, we've solved all our problems. The be'emes afal gavti mishamayim karat filei mikol lo poka meha ubar etzem din rodef bishvil zeh. What's he saying over here? What's muchrach? What do we have to say over here? Even though it's mishamayim karat filei, it's still what? It's still a rodef. You have to say that. You have no choice, because otherwise, why are you killing the Uber? Again, if you accept Reb Chaim's premise that the Uber is a nefesh, and ain't doch a nefesh, the only way possible is to say that the Uber is a rodef, but you just told me Mishamayim Karad Filet. So you're going to have to tell me that Mishamayim Karad Filet, yet it's a rodef. How can we say such a thing? The whole point of the Gemara, as we said before, is to ain bo rodef klal, lo avi rodef klal. Yeah. So Mishamayim Karad Filet means it's not a rodef. But now you're saying, well, I have no choice. I have to assume that even though, despite the fact that Mishamayim Karad Filet, it still is what? A rodef. The din rodef be. Oh, look at that. Do you see what word he adds over here? Din. A din rodef. I mean, until now, we were talking about whether you're a rodef, you're not a rodef. Now he adds another word. The din rodef. Be. So the baby, the Uber, before it pops its head out, and presumably even after Pops has said it, has a din of a rodef. The Baruch has a din of a rodef. The Gemara says Mishamayim Karadfilu. Ela de be'emes, nehi de ikar din rodef hu hatzalaso shel nirdaf. Right, so what sets up, what's the absolute source or root of killing the rodef? It's got to be saving the nirdaf. I mean, we know that if it's not a matter of saving the nirdaf, there's no way you can kill the rodef, right? So the whole mechanism of rodef is activated and begins with, when you press the button, it's hatzalas shel nirdaf. Now, we said that for the sake of the Hatzol of the Nirdaf, you can't kill anybody else because ain't docha nefesh v'nei nefesh unless you introduce some sort of parsha of rodef. So I think what Reb Chaim is trying to tell us here, which I think is a bit of a revolution, is that it's not enough to speak about Hatzolah Shel HaNirdaf, and as a result, to activate the halacha of rodef, you need something else. So again, let's read it again. El be'emes nehi de ikar din rodef. I think the word ikar here means the initiation, the initiative, the beginning, the first spurt. Why do we say the first stream of water? Why do we say there's a din of a rodef? It's because of Hatzolah Shel Nirdaf. The Hatzolah Shel Nirdaf certainly sets the background, the backdrop for rodef. But nevertheless, mikol makom, which I think means nevertheless, hadelo dainina alei hachte ein dochen nefesh nei nefesh. Right? You can't just simply say Hatzolah Shel Nirdaf, because as we said, pikuch nefesh and Hatzolah could not override the lav of lo sirtok. You can't kill somebody else. Ain't dochen nefesh nei nefesh. Havare Davidin chiyuva berodef. Let's underline those words, because now Reb Chaim is introducing another concept. Again, he used the word din. He was machadesh that even though Mishamayim Karadfilu is a din rodef, but says Reb Chaim, the din rodef, which means hatzolas hanidaf, is not sufficient, because otherwise ain't dochen nefesh nei nefesh. So you have to add another element into the equation. What's the other element? Chiyuva berodef. So again, we're trying to analyze the principle of Mishamayim Karadfilu. Initially, Reb Chaim said, Ein bo din rodef klal. But now Reb Chaim realized he can't say that, because then you're going to have to apply that even in the case of the Ubar before it pops its head out. So now we're going to say that despite the fact that Mishamayim Karadfilu, there is a din of rodef, but there's no what? There's no second din of rodef. What's the second din of rodef? The second condition that has to be fulfilled is a chiyuv rodef. Ashal kein lozehu de mahanya. What does mahanya mean? It's meaningful. It's significant. It's operative. Again, is it mafkia the din rodef? No, but it's mafkia the chiyuv rodef.
In the chiyuv to kill the rodef?
Not sure. I don't know. Let's read on. I think he means the chiyuv that the rodef should be killed. You follow what I mean? Umemela the dainin bei hadi ein dochen nefesh mipnei nefesh. Right? If there's no chiyuv of the rodef, which is called mishamayim karadfilu, then memela we go back to ein dochen nefesh mipnei nefesh. Avol mikol makom iker din rodef atzol seniduf lo paka mine lo paka b'zeh. In other words, there still is a din rodef, the iker din rodef atzol seniduf, but we don't have the chiyuv rodef, and therefore we're going to apply the principle of ein dochen nefesh nei nefesh. Oh, umemele the hadar dina legabe ubar did nidche mipnei ha'en. This is where Reb Chaim wants to get to the punchline. And what's the punchline? That we can be doche the nefesh of the ubar in order to save the mother. Why? Because hadar dina gabi ubar did nidche mipnei ha'en. I guess all you need is what? A din roda. So again, to kill the uber to save the mother, you need what? A din roda. Once the uber pops its head out, it's not enough to have a din rodef. What else do you need? A chiyuv rodef. Bishum to bedin hatzolas hadnirdov havidina de uber nidche mipnei nefesh hagom. Whoa! You want to underline those words? See, Reb Chaim is combining A plus B, and I don't know how to combine those two. Maybe you can help me with this. What's A and what's B? A is that the Uber has a din road. There's no chiyuv road. B is that the Uber, in comparison to the mother, is a nefesh she'eno gam. Now, we just said that without a chiyuv road, if we're going to apply the principle of ein docha nefesh shnei nefesh. Now we're going to suspend that principle of ein docha nefesh nefesh. We're allowed to be docha one nefesh save another nefesh because of the din road. Why isn't that enough in the case of yotza rosho? Because then you have a nefesh gom. See, I don't know. As far as I know, if you do a word search in Reb Chaim, he never mentioned this concept of nefesh gomer and nefesh she'eno gomer, did he?
I don't think so.
All of a sudden, I think he's like, I don't know, it's coming through the back door. I don't know. Because again, Mishamayim Karat Filei, and there's no Chiv Rodef. But we could be doche the nefesh of the ubar through the din road, even without the chiyuv of the road. Why? Because the nefesh of the ubar is a nefesh she'eno gam. Do you understand what I'm saying by A plus B? In other words, you can't be doch the nefesh of an ubar. And then we're saying the din rodef is not enough to kill the rodef. You need a chiyuv rodef. But somehow you can combine the two, that the din rodef, even without a chiyuv rodef, is going to enable us to say that we suspend the principle of doch ein doch nefesh ein nefesh. We can be doch a nefesh eino gomur for the sake of hatzolas nefesh gomur. That's what the din rodef is. Poel. Poel means that's what it achieves. So the din rodef is now changing the rules of the game with regard to ein doch nefesh nei nefesh. Because normally you couldn't kill the ubar to save the mother. Let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say the mother needs a blood transfusion, and the only blood in the world that we could get is from the uber. Would we be allowed to kill the uber to extract its blood?
Mm-hmm.
You hesitate. For sure, no. Because the Uber is not a rodef. The Uber is holding on to some dam that she needs. So we're going to kill the Uber to get that dam? Ain't don't nefesh nei nefesh.
What if someone is like could save someone like actively, isn't it? Would that be considered rodef?
What do you mean? You could kill someone passively or save someone passively?
Yeah, I could save someone. Someone has like is poisoned, and I literally have the antidote right here, and I'm just not giving it to them. My rodef.
So that's the sugi Rabbi Akiva ben Petur. You know, Shnaim sholchem amidbar v'yesh meim kito mayim meim bo kidei lishol shneim. That's the question.
No.
So I would say that you can't kill a person for not giving up the antidote. I would say that the person who doesn't give up the antidote is chayiv misa. I mean, we can't put him to death, but he's Chaim Misa. If he needs the antidote, then he doesn't have to give it up because we pass him like Rabbi Akiva. But is it clear that if Ein Doch Nefesh B'nei Nefesh applies to the Uber, we can't kill the Uber to get its blood? The only reason we can kill the Uber to save the mother is because the Uber has a din rodef.
We're saying nefesh applies unless there's din rodef.
And somehow the din rodef is now going to impact on Ein Doch Nefesh B'nei Nefesh and create a new set of rules.
But also, it would only work. I mean, din rodef can't kill someone without chiyuv rodef unless it's nefesh she'eino gomor.
Correct. That's Reb Chaim. I mean, if you want to summarize Reb Chaim, you just did so. But we're trying to understand the way it works, the mechanism. The mechanism, says Reb Chaim, is that although an Uber is included in Ein Doch Nefesh B'nei Nefesh, and that is because the Uber is a Nefesh, and we'll Machal Shabbos for the Uber, and even if you hold that we don't feed the mother because of the Uber, to save the Uber, but in Yosheves Alamash, everybody agrees. So therefore, Ein Doch Nefesh B'nei Nefesh, but despite the fact that we cannot be docha the nefesh of the Uber to save the mother, let's say the Uber's holding on to dam, but the Uber is still a nefesh she'eino gomor. So it's a nefesh she'eino gomor, but it's enough of a nefesh to activate the principle of ein docha nefesh b'nei nefesh. So far, so good?
Yeah.
At what point would we be allowed to change the rules of the game and be doche the Uber for the sake of the mother at the point in which we introduce a din rodef? And magically, which I don't understand how this works yet, maybe you'll help me. Once we introduce the din of rodef, we can now press the button on ein doche nefesh b'nei nefesh and change the rules of the game, and we can be doche a nefesh she'eino gomor for the sake of nefesh gomor. Again, we can't kill the Uber for the sake of getting the blood out of the Uber because the Uber doesn't even have a din rodef. But once the Uber has a din rodef, then we can now weigh the nefesh of the mother to the nefesh of the Uber, and we can make the decision that we can be docha one nefesh for the sake of the other, because this nefesh is defined as nefesh she'eino gomor, and this nefesh is defined as a nefesh gomor. Now, when you create that category called nefesh she'eino gomor, my nafkamina, and as far as I can tell, there's only one nafkamina, and that is the case of rodef. In all of the dinim, I would check it off. An Uber as a nefesh she'eino gomor is equal to a nefesh gomor. There's not an ounce of a difference between the two. But all of a sudden, what emerges from the depths of the ocean is that the fact that the Uber is not yet a nefesh gomor becomes relevant in halacha. And now we're going to be able to be docha the Uber as a nefesh she'eino gomor for the sake of saving the mother who's a nefesh gomor, but only because the Uber has a status or a din of a rodin. Let's see it inside again. He says, "Ashayira murchach mizeh to beemes afal gavdi mishamayim karadfile mikomakom lo pokabe uber etzem din rodef b'shvilse v'din rodef be ella the beemes nehi de ikar din rodef hu hatzalaso shel anirdav." That's fine. But mikomakom holo dainina le hachti ein doch nefesh nefesh havara davidin chiyuva berodef. So it's not enough to give a shame rodef, a din rodef, in the case of mishamayim karat fileh, when the baby pops out of it, and therefore say, well, we can be doch nefesh b'nei nefesh. No. For that you need a chiyuv rodef. Asher al kain lo zehu de mahan yehodim mishamayim karat fileh afkia minei chiyuv zeh. So there's no chiyuv rodef in the case of Mishamayim Koradfi. And that applies even before the baby pops, etc. Umemele, the Daininin Bay, Ein Doch Nefesh Nefa, Aval, Mikomakom, Iker Din Rov Tzosol Paka. And therefore, since it has the Iker Din Rov, the Memele, the Hadar Dina, I'd like to know what he means by Hadar Dina, Gabi Ubar, the Nitche Mipnei Ha'en. Right? The words Hadar Dina sound like you're going back to square one, but we never had a concept of being docha, the life of the Uber. But here we can be docha, the life of the Uber, for the sake of Hatzos Hanid. So let me stop here. Maybe what he means is that since the din of Hatzolas HaNirdav changes the rules of a Chayim, right? Because you cannot take a nefesh for the sake of a Chayim, which is called Ein Toch Nefesh Ein Nefesh. But in the context of a Rodev, the halach of Hatzolas HaNirdav takes on a new set of rules in which the pikuach nefesh of the mother can override the din of destroying a nefesh if that nefesh is a rodev. But once the baby pops its head out, emishamayim karadfile, that's mafkir the chiyuv rodev, then the din rodev is not enough to permit killing the ubar for the sake of saving the mother. So that halacha that saving the mother allows you to kill the rodev only applies when the baby has not popped its head out. Why? Says Reb Chaim, because the nefesh ain't a gomer. He says it so kalachayat, as if it's so clear. I would ask the following question. Let's say it's a Holocaust and you're alone hiding from the Nazis with a treifa. I'll explain to you what I mean by a treifa. And the treifa is making a lot of noise.
Is that the same as
Wait, just 1 second. I just want to think something. See. So even though the treifa has been a shamayim karadfi, because the treifa can't control, let's say the noise that he's making, but nevertheless he has a din rodef. So he doesn't have a chiv rodef, but he has a din rodef, and now we could say that he doche him because he's a nefesh einu gom. What would we say if not for Reb Chaim? We would die, and basically the treifa is going to kill us. I mean, he'll be responsible for that death. Because if he's a nefesh kamur, so wait a minute. So the case I gave you with the baby, then we would not be allowed to kill the baby.
Which case?
When I told you that they were hiding and the baby was making noise. Okay. Maybe we could kill a treifa, we can't kill the baby? Is that? Because I'm pretty sure they paskined in that case. I have to go through the chuvas that you could kill the baby. Because that's what Rav Huna says, that a katan rodef achar gadol is harganos, if need be. Ablei karodef. Even though the katan doesn't have what you call deliberate intention. It's like Minashamayim Karadfi. So why do we kill the child? So that's a question that we have to come to grips with. I don't know the answer to that question. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm saying could there be like a
because once the baby pops its head out and we apply the principle of Shemaim Karadfi, we can't kill the baby. So in that case where the baby's making noise, I don't think you can be allowed to kill the baby. But I don't know, in Lichtmer and Zinin, as we say in Yiddish, in the back of my mind, if I remember correctly, the poskim allowed it.
So on what grounds?
I don't know.
Maybe it was
On
Rodef.
the grounds of a rodef, that's for sure.
It was like Rodef Rabin.
What?
Maybe it was Rodef Rabin.
Rodef. Oh, Rodef the to save the rabbis. There is such a meiri, I think, if I remember correctly.
It has to be that the baby's just no longer rodef once it's popped the head out.
Correct. So Reb Chaim says it's no longer a rodef in the full sense of chiyuv rodef, but it does have a din rodef.
Saying that it's a rodef, you can't judge the case.
Right. After it pops its head out, you say it's a rodef, but without a chiyuv rodef, because mishvai karafi, we cannot kill the rodef. Because ain't doken nefesh, ain't nefesh. So once you have two nefashos, shkulos, meaning they're equal, one is not less of an nefesh than the other. At that point, we can only kill the rodef because the rodef has a chiyuv rodef.
At what point?
But in the absence of a chiyuv rodef, we can't take away the life of one of the rodef in order to save the nirdaf.
So what creates a chiyuv rodef?
What creates a chiyuv rodef is intention, deliberate intention.
But I thought we said that if the person's like falling off a building, and you have some ability to kill them, but this way they're not landing on top of someone else, then you would do it. Because the intention of this person isn't to kill the person below him, but you're still a chiyuv rodef.
We'll kill that person who the person who's about to crush us to death, that kind of thing.
Right. Because he doesn't have the intention.
And that's like Rav Huna's case of a cut in Harodif Achar Hagar. So we kill the cut. So why do we need, right? So why do we spare the baby when it's popping its head out? You understand my question?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the baby after it pops its head out? We cannot kill the baby, and the mother will die, as opposed to somebody who fell off a roof, and we can kill him. Or maybe even the baby case that's making noise. I don't understand the distinction. I was hoping Reb Chaim would clarify this, but yeah, I don't want to blame him that. Anyway, on this page, I have Reb Shimon Shkar. No, I'm sorry. Scratch that. On this page, I have Reb Shmuel Rozovsky. But it didn't come out in the photocopy, unfortunately. My son-in-law said he would try to make another copy that'll be more successful. One second. What does it say on the top of your page? Can you see the number on the top right or top left? Did that come out on this crazy photocopy?
Which one is it?
This one, which is called Ma'or Hagra. As I thought I had, unless I gave it out by mistake, which is pretty typical of me.
Yeah. Okay,
But what page number do you have? Well, you can't even read the page number.
we can't read it.
Not even the page number. Well, compared to this, I mean, is it the same page or not?
No.
It's not the same page. So do me a favor, give me yours for just a minute or two. I'll give it back, because I think I gave accidentally my only copy.
Of what?
Now I have it in my phone.
That's the one that
Are you?
the one you using.
What do you say?
That's the one. This is the one you just handed me.
Right. This is the one I need now.
Okay.
Now, if I would send it to you from my phone, do you think you might have better luck in printing it out, or it's always going to be the same? If the original is the same, then it's probably always the same, right?
Yeah.
It has the shadows.
Do you have a copy of the safer?
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I do have that page. Let's see. One second. Let me see.
Did you have a safer or not?
I don't think so. I mean, that would really solve my problems. Here, so I found this page. So see if you can follow me while we read. This is Reb Shmuel Rozovsky, who was Rosh Yeshiva in Panovich. Okay. Okay, what are we looking like here? Not too great, but we'll see. Okay. So this is the other page, and this came out much better.
Yeah.
This one, I know, we'll see if we can, maybe if I had a magnifying glass. By the way, I just want to tell you one story which you'll never hear and you'll never see in any article, biography, or anything. Reb Shmuel, when he got very ill, went to Boston for medical treatment. You know, Boston is one of the centers of the world for medical treatment. And while he was in Boston, he got to know Rav Soloveitchik, and they were talking learning. And somebody heard him say when he came back to Bnei Brak that there's no one here in Israel that I could talk to in learning like Rav Soloveitchik. That's not for the art school, they would not. So let's see if we can make this out. B'chidushay Rabbi Shmuel on Sanhedrin, which again, if we have that sefer here in Levat Torah, would be great. Beer. What are the next few words here?
Which paragraph?
Bottom left. You see the word b'chidushay?
Yeah.
So after beer, it what does it say? Beer levad, something?
I think it says divrei.
Oh, divrei?
I won't say it says Vashti, but I don't think that's right.
No, I don't think so. This is not on Megillah. Anyway, hamiyuchad. Maybe it means din. It should say maybe din hamiyuchad. Sheyesh birodef. Shenitan latzil es hanirdaf binafsha. That's what I think it should say. Right. So there's a special din in rodef that for the sake of hatzol hanirdaf, we're allowed to kill the rodef. Now he adds another chiddush. Vehu, the kevan de ika klola the ein dochen nefesh mipnei nefesh, mishum hachi tzarech bazeh lidin chiyuve. Maybe hatrefa, could it be?
Yeah, it looks like a pandangle. It looks like a dollar. Is there a word like Odafa or?
Anyway, in the next paragraph, he says, "Shalom lodun bo es hadin haragil shein doken nefesh ne nefesh." Ella kan nafshu shel rodev nitches mipnei hanirdav. And that's what the Gemara means, that Nishamayim Karad File, Hainu, Adin Shein Dochen Efshnei Nefesh, right? So Nishamayim Karad File retains the principle of Ein Dochen Efshnei Nefesh, Aval Ikar, something maybe Din Rodev, but it's also Nirdof Lo Pokab, right? As we saw in Reb Chaim. Oh, take a look. He says the shame Rodev Ispe. Mia Ispe. Oh, Mia Ispe. So the shame Rodev still exists. So the Reb Chaim calls it a Din Rodev, if you remember, and Reb Shmuel calls it a shame Rodev. So he changes the lingo. Now Yotzer Rosho. Oh, im lo Yotzer Rosho. So Adayin Eno Nefesh Gomur. The Svarahu, the Tidche Nafsho, with the Nefesh Ha'aim probably, Umimele Ain't Tzarch L'Chiyuv Ha'rodim. You see, he's struggling with the same problem. That you don't need the Chiyuv Rodev, all you need is the Shem Rodev. El Kol Sheyesh Lo Shem Rodev, B'din HaTzolos HaNirdaf, Nivnei Rodfo, is Nidches Nafsha. Mitzadina de Bikuch Nefesh, Ein Nefesh HaUbar. It should say Nidches, although it doesn't say that. Kom Komitzad Yovo Vatzolas Harodev Hanirdav. So I can't make it out too clearly, unfortunately, but the basic thrust of what he's saying is that the Nirdav has to be saved, and Hatzolos HaNirdav will not allow me to be docha a nefesh unless it's a shem rodev. And despite Mishamayim Karad Filei, there is a shem rodev. So the Uber has a shem rodev. And again, therefore, we don't apply the principle of ein docha nefesh and nefesh, because the din of rodev allows me to choose one nefesh over the other. Which nefesh do I choose? I have to choose the nefesh gamur and save the nefesh gamur, even though it means killing the nefesh she'eno gamur. And that's based on the shem rodev, which, as we said before, impacts on the game of ein docha nefesh and nefesh. It changes the rules of that game such that you can be docha and nefesh she'eno gamur for the sake of saving a nefesh gamur. But after the baby pops its head out and it becomes a nefesh gamur, since Mishamayim Karadfi only has a shem rodef without a chiyuv rodef, we cannot kill the rodef in order to save the nefesh. So that's basically what he's saying. Okay, then we'll stop here. I'm going to just